I'm super excited over and over and over again. If you've been with us for a while, you have heard story after story after story of how women have one situation and made something powerful, dynamic, great, exciting, amazing out of maybe something terrible, maybe a dream. And I'm like, goodness, this story, everybody need to hear that story. So hopefully you're sharing those old videos and you're like, that was a story somebody need to hear. But I hope that some of these stories actually make it to a larger audience and make it to TV. Because really and truly, that is a great opportunity for us to spread even more information and really just simply make sure that people's stories are accessible. And so we have Adrienne Rose White with us today. She is the mastermind between getting your story live and on TV. And so Adrienne has a course coming up. So she's a mastermind coming up. You better make sure you join. I'm going to drop the link in just a minute. Coming up on Saturday. But what she's been able to do is take the vision and go from vision to the actual reality of TV. And I know it seems so kind of impossible for a number of people, especially as you look at where you might sit today in whatever seat and what you're looking at on TV later on tonight or tomorrow, what have you. But it's possible. And so I love Black women to be in a situation where we can help other Black women. So Adrienne, thank you a ton for being with us today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yes.
What you're doing is amazing, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
And so one of the things I know a lot of people, because as I was talking about the show and I'm like, oh, we got this speaker coming up, you're gonna love it. People have books, they have stories, and they're like, what do I need to get started? Do I need a book? So I know a lot of people have written a book and they're like, oh, I can take this book. Can we pitch that? Or do they need a full script? Like, what do they need? What's the basics if they're saying, all right, I'm gonna be on TV. So they wrote that vision up, but the steps to get the vision in place, they don't have that just yet.
Sure. Okay. So first of all, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me again. So when you are starting out and you're looking to, okay, I have the vision, I have the book already. How do I go from book to actually getting it on the screen? So there are a couple things to think about when you're putting together a TV package. So one of the big things is, what roles do you want in the package? So I like to think there are four really, here, I'm like, how is it on camera? There it is. There are four really important roles. There's the someone who has a connection, an authentic connection to the story that's being told. Oh, so that's if you've written a book about it, that's you. The second role I think that's so important is an experienced executive producer to shepherd the project. So if you don't have previous experience, you're going to want to have someone who's worked in TV before to be able to sort of navigate selling from, whether you're selling to a production company, to a studio, or to a network, who can actually shepherd through that process and like see the vision through. So experienced executive producer. Third role would be the writer. So even if you've written a book, you may or may not want to be the person writing the script, right? So you have to decide whether, do you want to be the one writing the script, or do you want to find a script writer to collaborate with? And then the fourth is someone to bring in the audience, some proven piece of intellectual property that tends to, that already has a connection or is similar to something that has a connection. So something that it's clear that people will want to pay attention to it. So sometimes that's getting a star on board. Sometimes that's, even someone who's like a TikTok star, or a book that has an audience, or something that already has an audience. If you got those four pieces together, it is so much easier to sell a project. And it's great if you don't have those four pieces together. That just means you have to figure out, what do you bring, and then what roles do you need to fill in? So if you are the authentic voice and you say, I don't really want to write it, I just want to put it together. I just want this thing to, I just want this story to like get told, and I want to sit back and have been the one that started it. I had a friend approach me, a lawyer, who had an idea for a show. He just texted me the log line. I loved it. Together, we developed it into a one sheet. With that, I got an executive producer on board. With that, I got an experienced writer on board. And with that, we sold to CBS. And so the experienced executive producer had been the executive producer of The Good Wife and Lincoln Lawyer. So once we had someone on board who liked our idea, right, and then had the connections, it really sped up the process in terms of getting it sold. So I'm a big believer in getting really clear on what I want. And just to expand on that. So I'm obviously a screenwriter, but I write comedy, and this was a drama. And I thought to myself, I could write a drama script if I felt compelled. I'm sure I could sit down and get it done. But when I thought about what I really wanted to do on this project, it was to act. So I thought, okay, I'd rather focus my attention on that and like get a drama writer on board who has their own vision, who can enhance that. So I got a fantastic drama writer. She's a writer on Charmed, and now she's Bianca Sams, just the best in the world. But my point is, I already had a party going on, and I knew what role I wanted in that party. And then I started inviting people to join that party to fill the other roles until we had a package that was really exciting to buyers.
I love that. And this is a good question because you're connected already. And someone says, how do you find an executive producer? So if they're like, okay, I know a few of these other parts, but how do they get their hands on some of these big name or experienced producers?
Okay, so I am a big fan, and this is why I have a course called How to Actually Sell a TV Show Organically, because I feel like there are many, many courses on how to write a script, and that's great. That's so important. But that how you write a script is not the same as how you sell a show. So I'm a big believer. Every show I've sold have come from organic connections that I've cultivated over time. So I will tell, and that's why in the course I get into principles, because this career is not linear, right? Like when you look at any particular person, how they got it done, it's unique to what skills they bring to the table. So I'll tell you how I connected with executive producers, but then I'll tell you the principles behind it, because how I did it isn't going to be how you do it. If someone else tried to do exactly what I did, it wouldn't work. If I tried to do exactly what Issa Rae did, it wouldn't work. You really have to understand what you bring to the table and how to maximize what you do. So when I first came out to LA, I came out to be an actress, and I was looking for a side hustle to do. So I became a tutor. I was very good at communicating ideas, and I think I'm fun. So kids like to work with me. And so I was tutoring. And so this executive producer actually was one of my tutoring clients initially. And so when I showed up as a tutor, I wasn't promoting myself as an actress or writer, but I was showing up authentically as myself, so that when they said, "How's your day?" I would say, "Oh, it was great. I just wrote a new scene I'm really excited about." Or, "Oh, it was cool. I just had this audition that was really cool." Or, "Oh, I have a movie." I showed up authentically in terms of what I was bringing to the table and what I was working on. So as I built that relationship, it was always clear. It was always clear what I was doing. And so I think probably maybe like after a couple months of working there, he was like, "Oh, hey, if you ever have a script, send it my way." And so by having shown up in a place where I could show up well because I was doing something I was good at, and then being authentically myself and being authentic about what's interesting to me, he said, "Oh, she's already good at this thing. My son's doing really well. Yeah, I'd be interested in helping her out." So that was my path. But there are many other ways to do that. And in the course, we get into like many of the ways of how can you build authentic relationships, because there are things in terms of how you show up and how you spend your time that will put you in contact with people who have similar interests and who are tapped into the industry. And I find that that's the best way. Now, that's the best way. And then, of course, you can't meet everybody that way. So then we also get into how do you do cold outreach? Like, how do you reach out to someone that you've never had a previous relationship with before? And actually, that segues very nicely. I am doing a masterclass on how to actually get your TV pitch seen by, for example, an executive producer or a production company. And that's going to be, it's totally free. And it's going to be on April 1st, April 5th, and April 6th. I'm sure we'll talk about it again at the end. But so if you want to know a little bit more about how to do that kind of cold outreach and warm outreach, come through within the next week, and we'll talk more about it.
So definitely click on the link. I just dropped it in the chat. It'll take you right to it. It's free. Get your free information. But I think that's a good point. So of course, you being there, all the stars, you know, it's so easy to make that organic connection. Now, what about folks that aren't, you know, in those bigger cities or maybe in those circles? So they're going to do the cold call portion, but are there ways to find maybe community where they are? Absolutely.
And so now more than ever, location does not have to be a barrier to creating content and getting it sold. So that's the first thing. So part of it, I think, is a mindset thing of letting go of, oh, I'm not in LA, I can't do it. Is it harder? Do you have to be more deliberate? Sure. But that does not mean it is anywhere near impossible. So first things to think about, because when I talked about the roles on a project, one of the big things that executives tend to look for is, will there be an audience for this, right? Mm-hmm. So guys, great news. I don't know if you've heard of TikTok. I don't know if you've heard of YouTube, but there are places where you can start to generate content and build an audience from wherever you are. And it's fine if there are ways to do it without using social media too. That's fine. Having a book is another great way to build an audience, but essentially having a piece of intellectual property that people pay attention to, very helpful. Let's see, in terms of building the connections, that's another thing I get into a little bit more on Saturday, but just to tease it a little bit. So there are conferences as well. And conferences are great, especially if there's a particular production company whose projects you really like. And so how would you know that? There's a show you watch on TV, you think it's similar in terms of genre to a show that you would like to do. So maybe you go to IMDb, find out who the production companies are on that, find out who the people are on that, find out what network it's on, right? Like, do your research, find the information. And then there's so many, like Variety does a conference, Deadline does many conferences. There's a NATPE conference. I forget what it stands for, but it's NATPE. Or now it's either, I can't remember what order the P or the T go in. My bad. But you can also, like, I met the head of NBC when I went to one of these conferences. I showed up and I very deliberately networked with network executives, got their contact information, and like laid the groundwork for when I follow up and I'm ready to do a pitch. So and I could have done that if I didn't live in LA. I could drive there, I could fly there. It's about being interested in starting to tap in and trying to connect with the people who are doing the work that you want to do. And that's more accessible now than it ever has been at any other time in history.
And I think that's a really good point in terms of just kind of building your overall community. Is there a sweet spot in terms of, should you be more on a YouTube or on TikTok? And is there a number? Because I know we see people with like 100,000 followers or subscribers and all that kind of stuff. But could you say I have a following if you have like 1,000 or 5,000? Like, what would be, I need to get to this particular number to be valid?
Well, first, one thing I would point out is that so I'll take myself as an example. I think I have like 2,000 Instagram followers. Like, I don't have it. And I've sold 5 TV shows. Like, I would encourage you not to let the follower count be the thing that determines whether you pursue it or whether what you're creating is valid. But I do think in terms of, okay, so let me put it this way. With the first project that I did that kind of got a lot of attention, it was called Quirky Female Protagonist. I did it with my creative partner at the time, Ali Chan, who's incredible. And we were really smart about it in that we shot it. And then I think we put the first episode online, but at that time, digital series were starting to go to film festivals. So we started submitting it to film festivals. And once it got into the LA Film Festival, we got as someone who was a baby PR manager, like they had just come out of school and had just decided to do PR. So they were available at like a very affordable rate. Like I think we paid a few $100s for them. And they helped that, she was incredible. She helped us get placements on Huffington Post and NPR and the like. So this little show, this little web series we made, I think the first episode has something like 10,000 views, which I mean, it's not a million views, but it was enough to have enough attention, right? Like it's just about having momentum and thinking about, okay, how do I get this piece to more people, and who can I enlist to help amplify. So, and again, how we did that, I get to into a little bit more in the course, but I do think it's really important to think about, if you have a story and if you have a piece of content, it's really important to share it with the people who would be interested in it, and to enlist other people in your life to help share it further and further.
Now, you mentioned the film festivals, and I'm sure many of us like have heard of them, but does it mean more to like get in a film festival? Does that help you kind of propel things, or is it just the same as if you were just doing a pitch to somebody else?
I think the question is being in a film festival this, I'm sorry, could you say the question?
No. So if people are saying, okay, I don't live in LA, so they aren't, rubbing elbows with all the who's.
Mm-hmm.
So should they really be working to get whatever it is? So if they have a film that they've already done, something short, kind of, like Easter was doing, or, Quincy or so forth, should they be trying to get these things in like a film festival, or should they look at alternative means? Do they need like a small snippet or something like that to submit? Does it make a difference kind of one way or the other?
I think I hate to give this answer, but it depends on the project. Like film festivals can be incredible, and not all film festivals are created equal, right? Like you would want to go to a film festival where executives attend, right? So I think there are quite a few festivals that end up being mostly the filmmakers there, which is great. That can be great to meet other filmmakers. But if your goal is to sell a project, and people who would be buyers don't attend that festival, that would not accomplish that goal, right? So I think it's worth doing research in terms of what are the festivals that the production companies that you want to go to tend to go to, or have gone to in the past, or the like that. Like I think you can spend a lot of money applying to festivals if you're not specific about what where you're going and what outcomes you want from it. As for alternative methods, I live my whole life doing alternative methods. I think consistently find your way to do it. And a lot of times that means experiment, and that means play around, and that means, put your energy in a direction and see what comes out there. So I think it so depends in terms of which is better, because I'm sure something that would go viral on TikTok might not get accepted to a film festival. It really depends on what, and vice versa, right? Something that does well at a festival maybe won't do anything on TikTok. So it really depends on what you're creating and finding the right avenue for connecting with people through that. Now, I think another part of your question, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're asking if it's helpful to have a video or clip if you're pitching something. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a big believer that when you are pitching, you pitch the things that are the strongest about your project, that will show why you are the person to tell this story, and why the world needs the story right now. So if you can best communicate that through a video, through a trailer or a snippet, great, especially can be a great way to communicate tone. However, if that's not how you can best communicate it, if you don't have the resource to put together something that looks very polished, or connects in the visual way that you want it to, then it's not an asset, and it's not like, it's sort of, I like to think of it a lot like doing a project for school. Like sometimes in school you'd have like a syllabus, or like a list of things that you have to hit to absolutely do it. This is not that. Like you want to do what is going to viscerally get someone excited about what the story is. So whatever means is the best way you can do that. That is how you should do it, because the whole goal is to get a buyer, an executive producer excited about the project.
Now,
Does
should
that
you
make
be
sense?
pitching? Yes, because I think even thinking about that, so if you're, should you be pitching to all the different, to the CBSs, to the Netflix, to the Hulu, all of those, like, should you just be like, okay, all of y'all, anybody that wants me, or should you be like laser focused on, I 100% want to be like on NBC or something like that?
So I think it is great to have a clear vision of where you want to go, start with the end in mind. And then it really depends on your where you are in your relationship. So I'm assuming for people who are watching this, they haven't necessarily sold a show before and aren't coming like from a Hollywood perspective. So there, it can really help to start with a production company because they really help shepherd the vision and they like to get in at the ground floor and you don't have to come in with materials that are as polished. So for example, I still remember the first time I was pitching this was right after Quirky Female Protagonist had been at the LA Film Festival and all that. And we were pitching a show for the first time. And we came in like we had figured out every single little thing about this show. I think it was like a 20-page document going in there. We were like, we're ready. And in that first pitch meeting, it went really well because we gelled with the people we were pitching to, but we changed everything. And in the years since I realized, when you're pitching to a production company, especially, they want to get in on the ground floor and shape it with you. So you don't need to come in with everything perfectly done, but you have to be really clear about the core of what your show is about and why people will watch, why you are the right person to tell it and why people will watch it. That's always the most important thing. And with that core, if they're on board with that core, they will help you shape it. And they have the relationships to help you navigate going to a studio and to a network after that. So if you don't have a lot of experience, I think it's really helpful to start with production companies because you can go in a little less polished and you can craft it with them. Whereas by the time you're pitching to a studio or to a network, you really like that. That should better be.
You gotta have yourself together. Which this is a good question, and it kind of touches on what you just said. It says, do you need to create a rough cut to accompany your story? I guess if it's a production company, probably not so much. And if it's the actual,
yeah. I mean, I come back to it depends. It consistently depends on what role you want in the project. I will say I have never. So Quirky Female Protagonist, that digital series was the calling card we used to start building relationships to show, see, look, we make good content. Look, we have an audience. But in terms of for anything I've pitched, I've never made a video anything to go with anything I pitched, and I've sold 5. So again, that's why I come back to, but that's because my writing partner and we're both actors, so we're really great in a room. So we're like, listen, we need to give enough of a teaser to get the meeting, and then put us in the room, and we'll sell in the room. If you're not like that, then a video might be the way to go. And then, yes, you want to make sure it's, again, I keep coming back to this. Like if it's your calling card, it needs to be a calling card, right? Like you don't want to go into a meeting and saying like, sorry, the sound's not quite right yet, but so you want to go in. It's fine if it's sorry.
Like disregard the sirens in the back. And
yeah. You don't want to go in like that. But it could be something, if your strength is in the room and you think a little bit of a video clip that's rough will be an asset, then great. But if you're going to go in apologizing because it's something rough or something that's not ready, you don't want to go into a meeting apologizing. You always want to come in like, I have this great party going on. Come join my party. Not like, I'm sorry, it's not quite perfect yet, but if you want to look at it, okay. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And that goes back to just confidence, which some of you can get, if you're prepared, of course, and you have clicked the link to sellashow.com, you'll have the confidence to go to that kind of next step. But one question I think as people are coming up with these concepts, and I know we've probably heard these stories a ton of times, how do you protect your idea? How do you make sure that, I'm the first person that came up with a talking dog and somebody else doesn't come out with like a Clifford? And I'm like, no, he's supposed to be Clifton and, that kind of thing. Like, how do you make sure somebody doesn't actually steal your concept while you're pitching it?
While you're pitching it. Okay. So there is one, check out who you're pitching to. Like if you don't just take a meeting because someone offered you a meeting. One big thing I always recommend is registering your script or your pitch materials with the Writers Guild of America, with the WGA. So that's really a helpful way to have a paper trail. And then also have a paper trail of what you've shared with the person. So if you, thankfully, email is great because then you have email proof that you sent something to them. I generally, let's see. Those are the biggest things. The other thing is most people don't accept blind submissions. You really have to send the script through a lawyer. And that's that's supremely helpful. So I do recommend getting an entertainment lawyer. And as I'm sure some of you are like, well, how do I get an entertainment lawyer? A lot of times that entertainment lawyers attend film festivals too. So and remember, entertainment lawyers are also looking for, they get paid at 5% off of the deals they make. So they're getting commission based on making deals. So they're looking for people who are ready to go out there and make deals. Mm-hmm. So we got our, like Allie and I got our lawyer. I think we had just gone into LA Film Festival, but we hadn't even had any pitch meetings for TV shows yet. But we went in, we like set up many meetings because we said, we're going to be selling a show. So again, walking up into those meetings saying, we're going to be selling a show. We're looking for a lawyer. So we have our ducks in a row before that happens. So we're not scrambling at the last minute. What you got? And I think we met with 10 different lawyers and we landed on a fantastic lawyer who we loved. And that lawyer actually even set us up with a management company that he was close with. So lawyers are great. They're great connectors. They're great connectors in the industry as well. So if you don't have connections, one of the first places to start looking potentially after you have some content and you have something to show, that again, show that when you have that confidence that like, I have something to believe in, I have something that's really exciting, and now I'm going to start building a team, a lawyer is a great place to start.
I think that even brings up a good point in terms of seed money. So, okay, if you're going to submit to the film festival, you got to have some money. The lawyer's like, listen, this ain't charity. I need some money.
Well, again, the lawyer gets paid commission. So you're not paying you should not be paying the lawyer.
Oh, so that's good to know.
No, that's what I'm saying. You're not paying the lawyer up front. You're paying for you're paying the commission on the deals.
They're taking a portion after the fact. So that's
exactly
good to know. And so what are some of the startup costs that they should be prepared for? So, we're going to do the free webinar on Saturday, so we don't have to spend any money on that. You got the masterclass and all that. So, okay, outside of that, what should people be budgeting and saying, I need enough money for X?
So I know you're going to hate me for saying this, but again, it comes back to how you want to approach it, right? Like, again, so if you want to approach this, so let's make some people up so that we have a way. Let's say someone is a writer. They wrote a book, so they already have an existing piece of intellectual property, and the book already has an audience. Great. So then I don't think there's necessarily a lot of, okay. So if you get the course, the starter tier is $1,000 and it's a 3-month course to help you put a pitch together. It gives you all the videos and information that you need. And then also templates for like how to do outreach and what your material should look like and how to build the relationship. So we go deep into everything that you need to do to sell a TV show. And it's very do it on your own. And you can, take the videos and go at your own pace. The finisher tier, you get all those videos, but then you also get, and this is what I think is so exciting, I set you up with executives to give you feedback on you get feedback from me every week. And then 2, I set you up with executives to give feedback on your elevator pitch and feedback on your full pitch, so that your pitch is really ready to go. And I set you up with someone who is in the genre of what you're doing, so that you're actually getting feedback that's applicable for the marketplace that you're going into. And then on top of that, I have my dear friend makes exquisite pitch decks. So we also, after you've written everything for your pitch, she will make the visual deck to accompany it. So a professional level visual deck. And so obviously that costs more. Come to the webinar. We'll talk about that more if you're interested in that level of support. So if you want to super speed the process, it took me 6 years to sell my first show. And it took the first person I mentored 6 weeks. So you can spend the time or you can spend the money, right? With the information, you can really collapse time, or you can kind of figure it out on your own. So I think there's, have you ever heard of this thing where you have time, quality, and speed, and you can only have 2 of the 3? Like you can have it fast and cheap, but it won't be good. You can have it good and cheap, but it won't be fast. You can have it fast and good, but it won't be cheap.
Yes.
It's like, I think that applies. You have to decide what your priorities are and what you're willing to invest. Because if I could go back in time and have if I could go back in time and give myself the information I had now and pay for it, I would all day.
Why wait for 2?
Why like save all the time and the energy and the the roadblocks and the hitting things along the way and kind of get that tracked. So other startup costs. So if you're a filmmaker and you have a film already, yes, they're submitting to festivals. But like I said, if you're like on TikTok, there are literally people at studios and at management companies combing TikTok looking for content that they can convert. So again, you just have to think about, what avenue am I taking? And am I taking the avenue that best showcases what I do?
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, TikTok, you don't have to pay anything to be on TikTok. You could just start shooting.
Everybody uploading all kind of crazy stuff. But that just goes to show how sometimes we hear about these overnight successes and we're like, I can't do that. Or you're thinking you just have to go viral. And so you may not necessarily have to go viral. You just have to have quality content. This is a really good question. They say, what would the process be, or how would the process be different for a reality show versus maybe a drama or comedy?
Yes, great question. So, and the word they're using more now than reality show is unscripted. I just learned this from my friend and colleague who works in unscripted TV. So unscripted is really competitive because everyone thinks they have an unscripted show. Like everyone's like, oh, I got it. The big things with unscripted, it has really helped that genre more than others. I think it's helpful to go into a pitch with a star already attached, not necessarily, but it's very helpful. And I mean, having a star attached is always helpful, obviously, for everything. But I think for that more than other things. And what was the other one? Oh, yes. Again, conflict also matters. Like, what are the obstacles that the main character is going to be going through? But especially in unscripted TV, so much of it is about the arc and the conflict. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean fighting, but it does have to mean intent, like someone trying to do something and the intense obstacles that are blocking them. So many times people will think a situation is interesting and like, oh, I have a business and it's crazy. And okay, great. Yeah, maybe that there's potential there. But so what is the foil? What's the thing that the main person or people are trying to do? And what's the pressure that they're coming up against that's visual that you can use on screen to sort of show that conflict? I think that's the biggest thing with unscripted TV. That when you know what the conflict is and what the consistent problem is, that's when you have a show.
And I think it's the evolution, what we know. I don't even want to mention some of the crazy reality shows I've watched in the past. And then as things have evolved, there are a lot more things that are actually like warm and fuzzy and not just people like fighting and throwing glasses and stuff like that. But I think that's the thing. It's, you think of a good concept, but once again, knowing how to pitch that, where this person is going or where this team is going, and not just, it's, whatever show where they're going to be fighting, something like that. And I think
exactly
putting together the content that you want to see. Like, I think that's huge too.
I think it's really big. Yeah. Thinking about what kind of impact you want to have with the shows that you're making. And And there is a difference between a cool setting and a great TV show, right? Like you can have all the cool I'm gonna say doodads, like I don't know. You could have a cool, interesting setting, but if you don't have characters that we care about who are trying to do something, it sort of falls flat. So the more you can think about, okay, why am I rooting for this person? What do they want? What's stopping them? And how do they get through it? That's where you can find the really good stuff.
And it's good to know that like the unscripted side is probably one of the hardest, just because, you know, as certain shows came out, you were like, oh, I could do that. I could bring my homegirls together and we could drink wine or whatever. But are there other categories that are maybe a tad bit harder? Whether it be, you know, recreating some historical event or drama or comedy or those kind of things. Are there certain shows that are going to be a little bit harder to pitch where you really want to put some effort into showing the value versus some others?
I think anthology series can be difficult to pitch in particular and so by anthology, I'm talking about something like Black Mirror, right? Where every episode is a different world. And that is because it's really expensive to do. Like most like sitcoms end up being very cheap because it's the same set over and over, right? So you're taking the same set, the same people, and just having them say new things every time. Now imagine you're starting from scratch every single episode. That is a lot more expensive for a production company to do. So that is a difficult concept to get buy-in. Now that said, Black Mirror is very successful. There are very successful anthology shows, but it's definitely, I think in this day and age too, where sort of serialized things are quite popular right now, it can be difficult to get an anthology series more than any other type of show right now.
That's good to know, especially if you're going to prep for it. So if this is where your dream is, you really
I was like, but don't let that. It's like Squid Game took over the world, and who would have thought a show about getting murdered playing games from Korea would take over the world, right? So I say that not to say don't do it, but I say that to say, okay, then how do you position your show so that even though it has that cost, one is it being an anthology, is that essential to the story that you're telling? If it's not, maybe not do that. If it is essential, how can you turn that into an asset? Like how can you approach or rethink that so that when you're pitching it, you're saying, yes, it's an anthology series. And because of that, there's a unique opportunity here that you don't have with any other show on your roster right now.
Now, from a money perspective, like how much should they say, okay, I sold the show. Are they going to get any payment when they sell the show? Are they getting payment 2 years from now, 10 years from now? Is it a difference if someone says, I think this will go, you know, this is okay. And then all of a sudden it's like the biggest show out at that point in time. Does it make a difference? Like, do you get more money later, or have you kind of just settled in for whatever you sold it for on that first day? And then it becomes like, you know, Scandal or Squid Games or something like that. And you're like, this is big and I didn't get enough money.
Great questions. And that's why having good reps and good lawyers are important. That's where representation really comes into play, because they're the ones who are the ones negotiating that for you. So you want a lawyer who's a shark, to be real. Like that's what you want. You want
5%, so it's in their best interest.
Exactly, because what they get is attached to what you get. And so you want someone that is hungry. I think, tell me if this answers your question. So there's optioning a show and there's selling a show. So optioning a show is generally it's not a lot of money, but you'll get paid to not take the show anywhere else for a set amount of time. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year. And you're agreeing with the production company not to take it to another production company, to anywhere that you shop it. You're going to be shopping it together when you go to studios and to networks. So that's great. It's a little bit of money and it doesn't take away from selling later, but it's generally not a lot. It's like usually under 10 grand. So it's good, but it's not like, it's not like life. Well, maybe it's someone's life-changing money. Let me not speak for anyone else.
You're not buying a new house with that.
And of course, if you are very, very successful and have a huge audience, perhaps you can have a larger option agreement. But that's generally if for a first-time show under that. And then selling a show, you generally get paid when it sells to a network. So you might get optioned at a production company, or even just have a handshake deal with a production company. When you sell to a studio, a lot of times you'll get what's called an if-come deal, where it's sort of it's a contract that says how much you'll get paid if the show goes forward. So it's like, if it goes forward, the money is coming. So, and then when you sell to a network, so a network those are the people who distribute the show. So that'll be like your CBS network, it's a little tricky because some places have both studios and networks. But like HBO would be a network. Like the channel that you see, those are generally networks. When you sell to the network, that's when they pay the studio that you're with, and the studio pays you the amount that was in that if-come deal that you said. So generally in the if-come, they'll say, when the pilot script is written, you get this much. And, when the pilot airs, you get this much. And for every day, for every episode that's shot, you get this much. So it's something that your lawyer negotiates along the way. And so contracts get renegotiated, but it is helpful when you have a good lawyer to get you a good contract from jump. And sometimes you can get terms in the contract, like, and I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. I want to be so clear, guys. I'm not a lawyer. One thing I don't do is
play
law.
one for TV.
Exactly. I'll play one on TV. But so you can get terms in the contract, right? So to think about like, if X happens, then Y happens as well. I know with one of the first deals we had with CBS, it was like, if merchandise comes out, I get X percentage of any merchandise. So you can have like bars where if they're hit, you get certain types of income or returns or residuals.
And that's huge, because if they do like dolls or t-shirts or whatever that is, you want a piece of that as well. So that's huge to think about all the what ifs. So not thinking small, thinking about how large this could get and how large that could be for you in the future too.
Exactly. Like you can really build a piece of intellectual property that has many, many outlets. And so when you start to think more expansively about what your idea could be, and then start filling in the roles to help execute it, that's when some really exciting things can happen.
Now, since this process can be timely, so, if they get the $10,000 or what have you in the very beginning, okay, that's not enough to eat. So you probably got to keep your day job and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Should they be pitching multiple projects at the same time?
So that's a great question. Excuse me, 1 second. A little sip of water. So this is what I say. It depends. Now, when we were first-time writers, it was really, and after we sold the first show, I think there was even something in our contract that we couldn't be working on other projects at the same time, because generally it does take a lot of focus to get something going. Now, that said, before you sell the first show, it's great to have multiple things in your back pocket, so that if you're doing a what's called a general meeting, where you're not pitching something specific, you're just having a meeting to build the relationship so that you know each other, so that when you are pitching, there's sort of that groundwork already laid. It's great to come in ready to talk about a few different ideas or projects. And then if they get excited about one of them, say, oh yeah, great. I'd love to come in and pitch that to you in a couple of weeks. And then that way it's great to have more than one idea ready to go, so that you, depending on what someone's interested in, you can like lean into it. Now, as things are like further down the pipeline, it's also great to, once something's like down a pipeline, make sure to execute it well, because how well you do that sort of determines how many more opportunities you're going to get in the future and how that relationship is going. So it's great at the onset to have more than one concept. And then once something is really moving, I would say focus on that and make sure to do that really well when you're starting out, so that you're not going in 20 different directions.
That makes sense. Now, how much control do you get to maintain? So as we're thinking about, I have a script, I am going to sell this to someone, and I'm like, I am going to be the actress. And they say, no, we want Adrienne Rose White to be the actress. And I'm like, no.
I couldn't do that to you, Rosalind.
How much power? I'm like, no, I can do this. So how much power do you have in terms of some of the different portions about who will be in different roles and so forth, as you're just coming with this idea?
So again, that really comes to down to your team and who you've brought on board, right? Because if you have a team that is so for example, we come back to our 4 people, right? We've got our authentic voice, our executive producer, our writer, and our audience bringer, like whether that's a person or like a piece of IP that has an audience. So if those people are all on board for you from jump to be the lead, like you may have to fight with the network, but you've got a whole team of people saying only you could play this role. And generally, I do recommend that if you're aiming to be the lead, that the writer should absolutely feel that way about you if you're not writing it, because that is indeed, if that's your role in the project, being clear about that with your team. Is really important, and making sure that they're on board with it too. Now, that said, I know I'll be totally frank. When the first show we sold to CBS, we weren't attached. We had it in our contract that, like I mentioned before, we couldn't work on a different project while we were working on this project, but we put it in there specifically that we could still act in the project, that wouldn't be considered a conflict of interest. So we had our lawyers do that. The network wasn't willing to have us like officially like attached, but they would say, okay, well, I think it was either right of first refusal, or like essentially we would do the screen test first for those roles. So, again, it really depends on how much power you have, and also how clear you are and how certain you are about what you want to do. Because we talked and we said, if it came down to it, even if we didn't get to play the leads, we still wanted the show to go forward. So we were willing to do that because we were still the writers on the show. We're like, great, if the first show we have is a show we write on, the second show is a show we're on, cool. But that's it. If you're a writer, or if you're an actor, and like the reason you're putting the show together is to be an actor, then you might have a different relationship. Say, I'm not willing to give that up. Or, you know what? I think it'd be helpful for me to become a producer on this, so I really understand how it works, so I can position myself well the next time. It's also important not to see a project as like the last thing that you ever do, right? Because the idea, or at least my idea, I'm building a career. So the idea is I'm going to be coming back again and again and again. And so if each one I get one more piece of the puzzle that makes it stronger for the next time I come back and the next show I do, all the better.
Now, this is a good one. What are some of the mistakes that people make when they're pitching? You're like,
yeah,
You're like, let me tell you about this time.
Let me tell you about the mistakes people make when they're pitching. Okay. I had a mistake I mentioned earlier, which is like coming in. Oh, okay. Here it is. I think information overload in a pitch, like just like blasting them with every single detail. Remember, even a pitch is a bit like, have you ever been at a cocktail party and someone's telling a story and the story is just going on, like they're giving you every single detail and you're like, how is this even relevant to the main? I think there can be a feeling of, I want to show that I did my homework well. Like here, I dotted every I crossed every T. Here's everything you could possibly want to know about the show. And I think it's important to remember that what executives are listening for is there going to be an audience for do I understand the show? And is there going to be an audience for the show? And then how they feel about it. Do they feel a connection to the show? So if you're sharing so much information and so many details that it takes away from connecting about the show and showing that there's an audience for it, everything else, like other stuff, is superfluous. And like it's extra, it's confusing, it's fluffy. And so I think people come into pitches, they do a 20-minute pitch when they should do a 12-minute pitch. Like really hone down and distill what is exciting and essential and undeniable about your pitch, about your show, and pitch that. So that's a big one. Another big one is that I find that sometimes people, again, put all the information and like lose their voice. So there's no tone. And again, tone is so essential to knowing who the audience is for the show. So if you have a pitch for a comedy show, that pitch better be funny. If you have a pitch for a drama, it should be dramatic. If it's for a psychological thriller, your pitch better be suspenseful. Like whatever quality is in your show, your information about the show, you have to embody that as you are presenting it, because that's what they're buying. is the tone and your voice to tell that story. So if you're not bringing your voice into the pitch, even if you have even if you've hit all the points in terms of explaining what the show is, you haven't communicated why someone should be excited about it, because that comes in how you do it. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
I think that's a really good point. And I think that can be scary for some people, because if you're not the most outgoing person, you're probably writing scripts all day long. You're like, I can write 1,000 books, but I want to be a hermit. And do you get somebody else to pitch on your behalf? Like, what do you do in those situations where you're like, listen, I am funny on paper, but do I deliver?
But then be funny on paper. Great. No, so I think that comes back to like being authentically yourself. If you're a very awkward person, that's okay. Do you know, I don't know if anyone in here has ever subscribed to Masterclass, but Shonda gives a masterclass on developing a drama series. And one of the things she mentions when she pitched Grey's, she had her head in her written pitch document. She didn't look at the buyers once. She just read the whole thing because she was so nervous. And you know what? Grey's did just fine. It's done. It's a juggernaut. So, but it was also because her writing, if the thing you do really well is write, then show up there and your writing better be fucking on point, right? So it's fine if you're not, like, I'm an actor, so like kind of presenting and connecting, that's very easy for me. If you're not that and you can get someone to do that, great, because it's great to be engaging. And it just like lowers the barrier, like to connect. But if what you do well is right, then maybe I tend to like pitches because I go into the room. That's what a series Bible is for, right? So that it really pops on paper. Get a great graphic designer so that it looks really good. Like, again, lean into what you do well. And then as you present, make sure you present to your skill set. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Somebody says she's an introverted writer. So it's definitely her trouble or problem with in terms of what she's working on in order to do that pitch. So I think that's just the confidence of just, girl, write your heart out and
write your heart out.
Read it and read it, like cover your face and just read the thing. I think that's a really good. And I think it's one of those things that you don't think that's acceptable, but you just might need somebody to tell you, yeah, just read it.
Well, and I think, so it's one of those things where if you can find another solution, even better. So maybe there's a video playing part of the time. When it stops, you talk. Maybe you have an exec producer that does a lead in. Like, think about, my point isn't to just give up and be like, oh, I don't speak, so I'm not going to speak. My point is, and Shonda is now much better at speaking than she was when she pitched that, right? So it's, okay, how do I present what I am best at right now? And how do I think about how to keep leaning in? Because she did still have to read it, right? She didn't stay at home. She like went to that meeting, and sometimes the extent of what she could do right then was to read it. And then she kept growing and expanding from there. So that's one of the things we talk about in the course too, is what are the exercises that you can do so that you get used to speaking in front of people? Because I think that's a barrier for some of our introverted writers, and it doesn't have to be. You can do this. And yeah, your voice is important and we want to hear it. So it's all about how do we learn to amplify that voice.
And I know I definitely, because I read Shonda's book and then she talked about like the kind of writer that she was and the kind of student and kid and even as an adult and that whole, year of yes. Because I'm quite sure it probably took her some time just to get to the point where she was like, all right, I'm actually going to even read this. I'm going to leave the house and sit in front of some people and read this. So that's probably part of, when we talk about investing in ourselves, part of when they sign up for the course. And, I always say, girl, get your free stuff first. So of course, what is it? It's the 1st, the 5th, and the 6th. So April the 1st.
1st, the 5th, and the 6th. Yes, come through for how to actually get your TV pitch seat. And I'm giving away some free stuff too. So if you come live, you're like up to get
all your freebies. Get all your freebies. I just dropped the link in there again, because it can be the start of, okay, I've been thinking about this. You probably put it on your vision board 3 years ago and did nothing. And now this is the time to say, okay, I need to hold myself accountable. Let's do this. Let's get started. I've been saying it, or maybe you wrote a book or wrote a script or, talked with your homegirl about something forever ago, and then it didn't go anywhere. And so then it's time to say, let's put some action in place. And
let's put some
the
action in
structure.
place. And this is the big thing here. If I'd love to share a little story if we have time.
Yes.
So when I first came out to LA, I mentioned that I wanted to be an actor. I was auditioning for things, but I wasn't loving the projects I was going out for. And so, I was hearing a lot of, you make your own projects, find your own way. So when Allie and I connected, she had a little 2-page pilot script for Quirky Female Protagonist, but she hadn't written more of that. So what I started doing was hosting what I called study halls. So I'd have her come over, I'd set a timer for 30 minutes and a specific goal for what to get done in those 30 minutes. Maybe it was write a scene, maybe it was edit a scene, maybe it was do some research, but we had very clear action steps that we held each other accountable to do. And we used those throughout the process. So whether she was writing the scripts or whether we were planning production or whether we were building our audience, we used that framework of finding a partner and holding each other accountable to actually getting it done. And so that's been a big part of why I do what I do. I want to build community so that writing can be such a lonely thing. This process can seem really lonely, and it doesn't have to be. I actually did this. I hosted a pilot writing sprint at the beginning of the year. So writing a pilot script in 5 days. I had writer's block for a year. And that's where I started helping other people, because I was like, all right, I don't know what's going on, but I'll take a break and kind of refill the cup. And then I realized that what was missing for me was community. So I thought, okay, I'm going to state my intention of writing a pilot script in 5 days. I'm going to be public about it so that I'm held accountable, and that anyone who wants to join me, come through. I had a bunch of people come through. Everyone had pilots. Not everyone. A lot of people had either made progress or finished a pilot script by the end of it. It was incredible. So one of the really big things I find for making this process sustainable is to have community and not to just be doing it alone in your room by yourself, unless that speaks to you. If that works for you, great. But I know for me, being accountable to other people was really helpful. So that's what I've sought to build through How to Actually Sell a TV Show Organically, is start to bring together people who are ready to be accountable, to get their voices heard and their vision, make their vision real.
I think that's huge. I'm motivated. I'm like, yes, let's do it. I don't even know what I'm right about. I'm like, yes, let's write a script. But in 5 days. And I think that's the thing too, because some people have been talking about or thinking about for years. Mm-hmm. And just having the accountability, people then were able to make progress in 5 days. It's amazing.
Exactly. It makes such a difference. We think there are all these barriers, and sometimes it's just being held accountable and having a community to do that. There was an article, I think it was in Entrepreneur Magazine. I'm not totally sure, but they showed that if you write down a goal, write down what you want to do, you're 65% more likely to do it. And then if you have a partner or someone who you're accountable to, you're 95% more likely to do it.
Wow.
So it really makes a difference to have a community, especially in this business, which can be a lot of ups and downs. And it can take a lot of time. So when you have that community that can support you on the way, that's how you get across the finish line. So, anyone who's looking for some community and some support and to collapse time, to do it a lot faster, come through. Let's talk.
And especially if you're doing it on your own. Pamela Downs, she said writing in community is key. I remember someone made note. They said when you're doing things, especially when the rest of your circle isn't familiar, so maybe your family, your friends, your spouse, whatever, they don't know, they can't provide you empathy. The only thing they can provide you is sympathy. And it's like sympathy doesn't really help you. That doesn't drive you. That doesn't do all those things that you need. But because they actually are in it with you. So if you have accountability buddies, regardless if it's, writing a script or losing weight or whatever it is, they are in it with you. They are in the struggle. They are in the mud with you. And they can provide you that level of empathy that people who aren't, even if they're good intention, they simply can't. Jessica, she says she never thought about this, but she has an interesting story about her divorce to write. Girl, I want to hear about it. I feel like we should pour some wine in. Tell me now. Tell me now, girl, what's going on? But those are things that, too, a lot of the stories just simply being relatable. And sometimes you share a story and you're thinking you're going through something all by yourself, and people are like, girl, me too. That happened.
Mhm.
I didn't want to tell nobody. Like, it's good to see me on screen as a Black woman. It's always good to see another Black woman on screen. Like, yes, I'm here for you. I'm cheering for you. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're robbing a bank. I want you to rob the bank. I don't care what it is you're doing. I want you to be the best doctor, lawyer, whatever it is. I'm here for you. I'm cheering for you. So I think
And I
that,
have to
the
say,
story needs to be told.
exactly. It needs to be told, and our obstacles can become our superpowers. Like I had a show that didn't go forward. Allie and I had a show that didn't go forward, and it was really disappointing. But that obstacle ended up, we wrote another show about that obstacle, and that's what ended up selling to CBS.
Oh,
So
wow.
obstacles, the hardest things that we go through, can oftentimes be the launching pad to what we truly desire. So if you've been through something, you have a story, and it's all about finding out how to package it so that you can connect with more people and show them that there's a way through.
Now you have, I always say, girl, get your free stuff. So the webinar on Saturday the 1st, and then next week the 5th and the 6th.
Yeah.
So all of those are standalone. So they don't need to go to all three of them. They just need to go
No,
to
they're
one,
standalone.
right?
It's the same one every time. So come to one. Perfect.
Perfect. And what are they going to expect when they come? Do they need to come prepared with anything? Can they come? Because I'm like, I'm just gonna come because I feel like maybe I got a story to tell.
Maybe
So I'm
that's
like,
to
let's
come
just jump
through.
in, see?
Listen, all you need to come with, it can be helpful to have, somewhere to write something down. So, whether you type it on your screen or write it on paper. I know I tend to retain more when I'm writing things down. So if you're like that, I invite you to do that. That's really the biggest thing that you can bring. Bring a sense of interest and play, and be ready to think about what you want, who you want to get your show in front of. Yeah.
So
So
I think
I suppose if you have some time and if you really want to think about a show that you really love and practice doing a little research, like go to IMDb. So that's imdb.com, and just look up the show, see who the production company is, see who the producers are.
then you'll know if those folks produce the things that you actually like to see, and that might
And then you
be,
can see other projects that they do. Exactly. So
and that might point you to
that's
another
not
show.
essential, but if you want to do that before you come, I highly encourage.
Do a little homework, put a little time and energy into it, get down the river.
Yeah.
You might just find another show that you like binge on for the weekend, and you're like, I didn't even know I was like this. So that's one. But then two, so you have a course. So there's somebody out there that's like, girl, I don't need all this prep. I'm ready. Like, I know the show. I got the book. It's probably sitting on their mantle right now. They have talked to 10 people about this show, and they are ready to actually sign up for your course. And what I like, what you've already described already, this is not just a course where they're like watching videos. It's actually some time with you where you've had some experience. You've had shows that didn't do anything, and then you've sold 5 shows. And so you really have that experience and being out there in LA and kind of knowing all the ins and outs and so forth. So tell us a little bit about what to expect in the course, and the price going up May 1st. I want to say that.
Price going up May 1st. So there are 2 tiers of the course. So the first tier is the starter tier. And that's if you just want to do your own thing, great. I have all the videos, all the templates, and we'll go through, and it'll be everything you need in terms of building the content. So by the content, I mean the documents that you need. So how to write the pitch script for how to pitch it, like all of that you will learn, and we'll walk you through it every step of the way. And in fact, we'll even have writing sprints. So even if you don't do work in between the sessions, if you show up to the session and do the work in the session that I'm telling you, you will have a completed pitch by the end of it that's ready to go. And like a good pitch. Because we get into what makes a good pitch. Like we do a breakdown of some of the most successful TV pitches and what made them successful. And then I give you a prompt so that you can write your version or what speaks to your project in a similar way. So we'll walk you through that. So it'll be how to build the content, and then also how to build the relationship. So how, I know we've talked about like the roles in the project, but how do you actually put together the team? So we'll have template emails. We'll have all the ways that you can reach out to people and where to look and what to do when you found them. So we'll walk you through all the parts that you do it totally on your own. Great. So if you're ready to do something on your own, that is a sort of a do-it-yourself version of it, where we'll give you all the support and you go. So the finisher tier, that's the one where you get to interact with me. So we have In addition to all that, you have access to all those things. And then you also get weekly coaching from me. We alternate between group coaching, where it's a cohort of 12 people that I think are a great fit to support each other and to hold each other accountable. So there's an application process. You can't just get in. Also, because I'm introducing you to my personal contacts. So obviously I want to make sure people are ready to make the most of that opportunity and are not wasting, my friends' time. Like that it's really mutually beneficial.
Showing up and actually prepared. Yeah.
Yep. Show up prepared and ready. So you'll get feedback from me we'll do office hours, which I'll be available online and do, depending on how many people, will tell how much time you get, and we'll work one-on-one on anything, places you're running into problems or where you want feedback. And then we'll also, on the other weeks, we'll do group coaching, where we'll get into, where people are running into roadblocks, what they need, support people where they're doing well, and the like. So we'll have all that. And then like I said, we'll have someone actually make the visuals for your pitch deck for you, because you'll have gone through the course and written your whole pitch. And then you'll have the beautiful top tier visuals to go with it. So you have the kind of high caliber project, so that you can take it to the high caliber places you want to get it sold.
That's big. See, Pamela, she said she wrote a screenplay back in the day for a project. She said maybe she can learn how to make it stronger and market it. See, you got something that's already sitting on the shelf. Girl, you can make that big. You already did the hard work. Now it's time to polish it up and get it ready to pitch.
Exactly. So, because a lot of times scripts are so important, they can be great as a leave behind, or they can be great to get an initial meeting. But in terms of how to sell a show, a lot of times it's really the pitch. It's really how you communicate the main idea, and where does the script go from here? Like, what is this show as an entire series? So yes, if you've already got the script, girl, you did the hard part. Come do the fun part.
Yes, go ahead, girl, get your show. Then I'm gonna be like, yes, we all go sit around and watch it. We're gonna have a little watch party. So you gotta let me know. So if anybody gets their show picked up, we're doing a watch party. So please hold me to that.
Yes.
We're promoting it like crazy. And so I know we are up against time. If anybody has any other questions, drop those in the chat. But tell us any closing remarks. So we're going to prepare. We're going to go to IMDb. We're going to do some research prep for the masterclass on the 1st, 5th, or 6th. See somebody. Oh, Jessica already got IMDb credit as a producer already. Girl, you already halfway there. See, y'all halfway there. Half of y'all already, like, all you need is a pitch. We're gonna be watching shows all weekend.
Can I see the comments too? I don't see them on my screen.
Do you not see them on the right? Hold on, I'm gonna put it up here. There we go.
Oh, there. Okay, now I can see that.
See, anyway. She gotta go and do that. She already ready.
Okay. Oh,
cool. She got her screenplay already back in the day. I mean, folks already got work already done. See, I needed to be in the push me to write for 5 days, but I'm coming. I'm coming on the 1st, maybe the 5th. So I'm gonna be there.
I love that. So the last thought I'll leave you with is one of the other principles that I love, which is that reciprocity creates flow. So when you're looking at building authentic relationships, and when you're thinking about selling TV shows, it's about how are you. When you go into a meeting, it's not, oh, can you do me a favor? It's how can we build something that's mutually beneficial, right? Like go into meetings looking for a partner who understands your vision and can help you execute it. And that you understand what their company's goals are and what they're trying to go do, and show how your project helps execute that, right? Like when you're doing something mutually beneficial, that's when it's really sustainable. So that's why I've built this course the way I have too, and built this community, because it's all about the reciprocity of how do we find a way to support every party so that moving forward is sustainable for everyone involved. So when you take that approach into how you approach selling your show, that's when you can really find the aligned partners and get it done.
I love it. Jessica says she already had a show on Tubi. Girl, okay, we gotta look. Message me, tell me what that show is so I can look it up and watch it. I'm gonna watch it this weekend. I cannot thank you enough. Somebody mentioned about shows that they wish they saw more of, shows that they wish we had more of. And I can never get enough of watching shows about us, by us. with us in mind. And so I cannot cheer enough for what you are doing. So I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. And I can't wait. Ladies, y'all gonna let me know. Like, tell me how it's going. Tell me how the show is going. Tell me how the pitch is going. Jessica said her show is called A Walk in My Shoes. It's on Tubi. So we're going to check that out. Let me write it down. So
I was going to say, I'm going to literally check it out as soon as we end this right now. So I'm very excited.
And so you gave us so many gems. I mean, it depends. It don't matter because we've gotten still good. We're like, yes, we still got stuff.
I was like, here are the factors you can consider when answering this question. There is not one answer.
But it lets us know that there is no single pathway. And there are so many ways to make it work. You don't have to live in a certain place or already have a certain thing. You just have to have a good idea and a way to pitch it. And then you got Adrienne, and then poof, you're done. Like, you got shows galore. So you know, we got next Shonda Rhimes.
I was like, your mouth to Shonda's ear. Listen, your mouth to Quinta's ear. We'd love to hear it. This has been so great. Rosalind, thank you so much for creating this incredible space to lift us up. I feel very, very lucky that we got connected, and I'm so excited to be a part of what you're building here.
Thank you so much.
Incredible.
I love it. Thank you all for joining us again. And until next time, have a wonderful night.